Well, well, well. How the turntables?
Well, some baseball stuff happened today. Let's talk about it.
Baseball stuff!
First, I want to give a shout out to a handful of Mariners creators that I was able to find out this information from. I was at work and then I get home and I see all the good news. Granted, I do have a phone, but I was actually busy today at work. So when I got home, I was able to kind of see all the good stuff. Give a shout out to Tried and True, Ryan Divish, Jay's Trident, East Coast M's, The Couch GM, Locked On Mariners, Marine Layer, Jake from Raise the Trident, and Mariner Mojo. If you're not following them already, please give them a follow. I've gotten a lot of my content over the past months and maybe even years from these guys. They do a great job. And honestly, seeing the Mariners community, I'm still a new guy on the block, still trying to create something here. But from what I've seen from this Mariners content creator community, they are great to work with, and they seem like they have a tight-knit family. So hoping to kind of knock on the door and be involved.
And my wolf pack, it grew by one.
But so baseball stuff, back to it. Donovan Solano, 1 year, $3.5 million with $1 million incentives, headed on to the Mariners. Low risk and a potential for a high reward. And if he doesn't pan out,
Hey, nobody cares. Nobody cares.
no one cares. Really good one. I think this is for bang for buck, which is Jerry's sweet spot. We were talking about Luis Arise last week, and that had Mariners fans splits for $13.7 million. Still kind of a wow to me, but also, all right, with what we have to work with, this was an excellent pickup. He's coming off of a 286 year in San Diego. He's proven that he can hit in multiple different areas. Miami, he batted 295 there, played there for a handful of years. I'm singling out the 1 year in 2012, but he's got an extensive history of hitting. Played 23 games for the Yankees. Been with the Giants for 3 years, Cincinnati for a year, and then Minnesota, and then just finished up with San Diego. He's hit everywhere he's gone. 280 is like his bar. If he's not batting 280 plus, something's wrong. But yeah, there's a lot to like here. On base, batting average, the guy gives you a lot.
That's what she said.
Like I mentioned, he's a low risk and a potential for a high reward. The one negative, being nitpicky here, he's 37 years old. It really isn't that much of a negative. It's more when we're putting up green flags, yellow flags, red flags. This is more of a yellow flag. He's 37 years old, and he's coming into probably the toughest part of his career, being 37 years old and trying to continue to establish himself in Seattle. As we've mentioned, or as I've mentioned, at least in the past, the hitters that have shown success in Seattle tend to be contact type hitters. So Donovan Solano, I think he's set up for success. So really like this one. And here's the thing. Something finally happened with the Seattle Mariners. Something finally came together. We finally had our first real true acquisition. No, that's not a slight to Austin Shenton or Nick Raposo or even Hagen Danner, but this is an actual could potentially help us make that playoff push, given the scenario and given everything that happened last year. I did want to pivot to, we waited till January 13th to finally make an off-season acquisition that went kind of towards that 26 man. With that being said, here's what's crazy. There are still two very big free agents. We all know who they are. Pete Alonso and Alex Bregman, still available. Out of our price range, 100%. But it's not crazy to think that they are still available. Let me tell you why. We talked about it in the last baseball stuff segment. Mitch Haniger and Mitch Garver, the former of the two, Haniger being probably the most expendable, but also toughest to trade with his $17+ million on the table. But as we mentioned last year, if you can trade Marco Gonzalez and Evan White, and the Braves can turn right back around and ship them off. One of them was, I believe, going through a Tommy John, and Evan White played a handful of games in the pandemic year and really not a whole lot since. If they can turn right back around and sell them somewhere else, and they only had to eat half of each of their chunk of change, which I think ended up being roughly around $10 million to take on Jared Kelenic. Well, where there's a will, there's a way. The Braves are willing to do it. Now, can you package Haniger with even a mid-tier prospect and eat $8 million? $10 million? What does that actually look like? Can you put in a Brandon Garcia, which I'm not advocating that they trade him. I'm a very big fan of Brandon Garcia, and I really think he's going to help the Seattle Mariners. I'm just trying to pinpoint, or not even pinpoint, trying to explain the area of prospect that the Mariners might need to put in. It might be a Ty Pete. It might be a Michael Arroyo, which I'm not a fan. Everything that I've heard about Michael Arroyo is that he is the team funny guy. He's the guy that everybody bounces around. He's shown nothing but progress year in and year out. There's a lot to like with Michael Arroyo, so I'm not advocating for that. But what does that look like? Which prospect does it need to be able to package Haniger or Garver, given the circumstances, to ship them out, and to make some salary room to bring in Bregman or Alonso? I think most Mariners fans and most Astros fans, and maybe even Bregman himself, doesn't want that to happen. He makes a ton of sense ability-wise. I think he fits as a player, but also does Bregman even want to come to Seattle? Being with an organization for that long, winning an asterisk next to the World Series, and then winning a World Series, does that hold a lot of weight on going to a division rival? So it kind of points to a Peter Alonso. The polar bear in Seattle could help. So now you address a little bit of the on base, a little bit of the hit tool, and then you also bring in the power. With those two in this roster, that could be one of the better off seasons that the Mariners have had for quite some time, and it's not a crazy amount of money that they would have had to spend. Still think we have problems in the front office to not capitalize on a year where we have so much to gain. I still remember being 11 years old, going to the 2001 Mariners, and still understanding what the Seattle Mariners are, still understanding this is an anomaly to win 116 games. At 11 years old, I was like, oh, okay, like this happens all the time. No, it doesn't. In fact, it won't happen for another 20 some odd years, 21 years, until you'll see him again in the postseason. Crazy. Well, here we are. Could the next move be some form of a salary dump? The other person that's still on the table is Luis Castillo. Again, not advocating for him to be traded, but and depending on where Roki Sasaki lands, which all signs do not point to the Mariners. I'm not here saying I'm the first on the scene saying the Mariners are going to get him. I don't think they will, but by stroke of magic luck, you end up getting Roki Sasaki. Luis Castillo becomes expendable again. And freeing up that money and getting a Pete Alonso, yeah, your offseason becomes a little bit better, a little less grayer, especially in Seattle. So excited to see what the next moves are going to be between here and the end of spring training, because we've seen moves still in spring training that still could happen. So if they were to get rid of Mitch Haniger, not that they necessarily need a backfill, but they could have a roster spot available. The Giants just DFA'd Blake Sable. I do like Blake Sable. I think he could be somebody that could bounce back. And I mean, we always say that with the Mariners, and no one ever does. But looking at his prowess and what he has brought to the table in the past, Blake Sable could be a good fit to backfill. Could be one of those guys that, you know, you stock up in AAA and maybe he makes appearances depending on where your roster size is at the end of spring training. The other part is taking a look at, if you were to let go of Garver, just taking a look at the catchers that are still open. You have Yasmani Grandal. I think he's going to want a little bit too much to be a backup catcher. I say that, and we have Mitch Garver. Elias Diaz. I'm going to get through some more, but I'll just go ahead and say Elias Diaz is kind of my favorite in that one. Just what he's done in the past and what he could provide as a backup catcher. I think he is my favorite. You got James McCann, who I think is going to cost a little bit. He might cost a little bit more. Not bad. They have Jan Gomes listed here. I don't know what he realistically can give you other than veterancy, which there is another lack of that. So that could check off a box of having veterancy. Luke Maley, maybe doesn't bring you down a whole lot if he doesn't do well. Kirk Casale, well, we're familiar with him. Omar Narvaez, I was surprised to see he was still on there, and he just signed a minor league deal with the White Sox. He would have been a fun one to bring back before the White Sox picked him up, and who knows what those conversations are like behind the scenes. But he would have been a fun one to bring back to Seattle. If I'm not mistaken, he had like close to 20 home runs and split time with Big Tom. But yeah, Martin Maldonado and Max Stassi are the other ones. My favorite would be Elias Diaz if that scenario were to come to fruition, where Mitch Garver is on the move to free up some salary space, and you go get Elias Diaz. Gives you that crossover for Harry Ford, potential for late this year or next year, whenever his plan to come up, or whenever Jerry's plan for him to come up. Yeah, I do want to kind of throw it to the chat and throw it to the comments. Who do you want to see the Mariners pick up that are still in free agency? Yeah, let me know in the comments. For Up West Sports, I'm Gavin Height. Thank you for listening, and go M's.